Hey everyone, this is Adrienne, the Integrative Awareness Coach, just stopping in to say hi today and happy Friday on this September the 11th. My apologies for my absence. I think probably over the last 2 weeks I haven't been doing tons of videos because just been maneuvering and navigating the energies out recently, as I'm sure you have been. So I just wanted to come on and share with you some energy updates, I guess you could call them. So you can't see it, but the skies are orange here in Oregon. It's 2:30 and it's pretty gloomy, I guess is the word. Grim, that's the word. Grim out there. Just sending all my positive energy to all the firefighters and all the people that have been having to evacuate their homes, and sending you my prayers and my thoughts, and knowing that you are safe and protected. So we have Mars, the planet of masculinity, has entered the house, its home sign of Aries, I think it happened in June, and it will stay there for 6 months till December, I believe. And it just so happens that so we have Mars, the planet of masculinity, and its home sign of Aries. And this so happens to be unfolding in my 9th house, which has traditionally been the house of philosophy and truth. And I've always been a truth seeker my entire life, and I happen to have Chiron, the wounded healer, also in that same house. And now Mercury's gone retrograde. So what does this all mean? And we have the sun in Virgo. And so, I don't really talk about astrology too much. I don't fancy myself a professional astrologer, although I have studied astrology most of my life in regards to different seasons of my life and different energies and how they've shown up. And so, there are many people that don't believe in astrology and say, well, I don't really believe in that, because it triggers their sense of belief in science. They're like very grounded in science, and astrology is considered superstition. But I like to think of it this way: is like when there's any field of knowledge, like any knowledge that is traditionally passed down generation after generation after generation, it has withstood the test of time because there's some actual truth in it. Now, not to offend the scientists out there, I like science. I have nothing in the it's a tool, right? But there's many tools out there. And, like I always say, the astrologers, they're the ancient rishis and gurus in different philosophical tradition and wisdom schools, which is the 9th house, had different vocabularies based on they didn't have science, so they were using what they had available to explain their connection to the earth, to the cosmos, and to life. And that's why it has truth in it. Now, people are like, well, you can't tell me that, because Mars is here. Blah, blah. It's just like a weather report, And if anything, man watched the stars and found patterns. And the patterns are life. And so they worked out that certain patterns create certain energies. And so, throughout every tradition, they, in some way or another or other form, they have the axiom as above, so below. You know, Father and I are one. Like heaven, heaven on earth. Like it's all connected, and it just depends on the vocabulary in which you use. The message is very similar. It might use a different lens, a different vocabulary, but its goal and its intent is the same. So I'm sharing this all with you because I think when people limit themselves to, like, no, I can't listen to that because it's not steeped in scientific research. Well, scientific research is a series of hypotheses that are disproven over and over again. And so, it's like, well, this is our truth until it's not, and then this is true until it's not. And so, but people will invest their time and their energy in that because that is the most popular brand of knowing that we have. And this is all knowing of the mind, not knowing of the soul or the heart or the highest awareness, which is you. And so this is knowledge of the material world. But clearly we are not just material bodies. We have spirit infused, which is called life. So we have a combination of the material and the spiritual, or energetic, whatever you want to call it. It's mixed. It's a combination. You have to have both, the yin and the yang, the male, the female. There's this opposites because we live in a material world of dualism, or duality, I should say. Anyhow, I'm telling you all this because of my experience, and I want to share it with you because it might give you some personal insight into what is showing up in your life also right now. So we have the sun in Virgo, and Virgo has been traditionally the energy of purification, pulling the wheat from the chaff and getting down to bottom line, like what is the essential part of us, of consciousness, of spirit together. And so we have that. And we also have, as I mentioned, Mars in Aries in retrograde. So it's like a dredging of divine masculine, the masculine energies. And so we have, I'd like to say, counterfeit models of masculinity and counterfeit models of femininity. And these are the models that were created in separation from divine source, infinite intelligence. Because the mind wants to reduce everything to materiality. Like, nope, it's just a material world. But it's done a great disservice because it's disconnected many people in the modern world from their life source, like that connection to the cosmos. And that's what astrology really is, an expression of our connection to the cosmos as being part of this organic whole of this planet, of the solar system, as, cosmic beings living in a galaxy. Most of us just say, oh, I live in Oregon. It's like, yeah, but Oregon's in a state, in a country, on a planet, in a solar system, in a galaxy. And so we forget about all that. We're like, just the science. Science is science is trying to understand why we're here, and that's where religion has tried to come in and explain things. There's this God who created everything. But if you didn't have the language of physics or science and you were trying to explain the essence of the universe, personification isn't bad. It's an incredible holographic analogy that, that God, energy of God principle is the principle of creation, the principle of life, fractaled out in form, which is us, these bodies. And the blueprint, the little maps are our DNA, which are little galaxies in with themselves, So, our limited sense of who we are is being dragged out, cleaned out. And these roles that we've been playing in this world of disconnection, in this world of materialism and consumerism, which have caused people a lot of suffering and confusion, because people are looking for that depth of connection, and they can't go to the church to find it, rarely, because of the way the dogma has created part of you as bad. And so there's this like good and evil split, and you can't know evil because that's the devil, right? And so you're not at peace with yourself, so you have to find this outward source and go through the medium of a church, when Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. And so this whole religious complex has created such a wound for people, because it just created more disconnection from their own divinity. And going to a church to find it out there. And, there's some really good things about churches. They create communities and connections and support. But they also created a lot of helplessness and suffering and self-rejection. And there's a lot of wounding around God. That's why a lot of Americans consider themselves either a Christian or agnostic. And more people are dropping out of churches. They're just not attending, because they're not connecting and meeting an authentic need, which is for people to know the truth of who they are. And so all of this energy of Mars going through retrograde is cleaning the underbelly, the unconsciousness, the collective consciousness of all the themes around masculinity, which have to do with protection, protecting oneself, which is the basic of the ego, right? Creating boundaries between you and me, and defining myself. And this is, sometimes where we get the idea of aggression or conflict, right? Because if you want me to do something and I say no, that's going to create a conflict. But that's based on a separated version of masculinity. Because if it was connected to life source, it would know that all people, every single person, is connected to life source, and that we all have the same basic needs, and that your best and highest good is connected to my best and highest good. And when it says in the Bible, for instance, in every world religion, in some form or another, love thy brother as thyself. Well, if I'm going to love thy neighbor, I have to understand my neighbor is me. Like, I'm not separate from my neighbor. We're all connected. So it's like a case of a misidentification after misidentification after misidentification, based on survival needs. Like, if you're going to eat that gazelle, there won't be enough for me, so I'm going to have to kill you. Something like that. But we live in an abundant universe, and nature is so abundant, just constantly replenishing life and plants and animals. You know, she lives under the law of abundance. And so there's this stimulated sense of individualism that was largely fueled by survival instincts, by a primitive ego, and it is now destroying our planet. And so this primitive ego is going to have to evolve. And this means that every person who would like to evolve is going to have to examine their relationship to these masculine energies, which have to do with believing you're separate. And the shadow side of that, which creates villains and demonizing others. And so the natural law is not balanced. The mind isn't balanced. It's disconnected from the heart. And not a whole lot of people are able or willing to sit still long enough to go within, to start observing their own psychic, emotional, reactive mechanisms of the ego in order to clear those out, to heal them, to feel unprocessed emotions, unprocessed constructions. I mean, we have our own personal ones from our lives just living as an individual, but our DNA is a collection of all the people that came before us. You know, all the people that lived, that we came through. We came through their stored memories called DNA. So it's like going through the leaves of a history book in order to arrive. And so a lot of these mannerisms and tendencies and energetic modes of being in the world are unconscious. And so part of what we're being asked to do is, in this clearing, is to bring the light of awareness to this unconscious storehouse. And right now it's specifically focused on our sense of self, because that is the structure of the ego, you know, out there and in here. And I can control what comes in here, believing that we're separate. And so this is not a process of the intellectual mind. And this is hard for many people to understand. And I want to say specifically men, because they have been trained out of their emotion. They have been trained out of connecting to their heart, where all the true knowledge of creation exists, because our hearts are the portal to creation. And so they keep going back to the intellect, and the intellect just keeps producing more separation, more conflict, because this isn't the job for the intellect. And there's also a fear, incredible fear of going within because of all the things that have been stored there. And a fear of self, right? Not because men have traditionally been the warriors and the protectors and the committers of violence, and so disconnected, disconnected from the principle of life in order to do this to one degree. So it's like having to be alienated from self. And so when you ask the masculine to come back to wholeness, it has to be willing to go through not only the personal material, but all the inherited material of masculinity, which can feel a little bit like going through hell. Because you have to face all of the repressed material that the mind couldn't process and the heart wasn't available to process at that level. And so, as a woman, I'm also having to process this energy with the men in my life, the male models, and how that reflection of those masculine archetypes help to define me as a woman, and how that constructed my sense of self in the world, my own ego structure, my own sense of power and freedom, my own aggression, my own shadow, my own rejection of self, like not being able to accept certain aspects of myself because I'm only good, as a result of being raised in a church where, everything that wasn't good was related or connected to Satan, versus that we live in a world of duality and we're both things at the same time. And when you say evil, they just really kind of messed that up too. Demonized evil, and all evil really is separation from God, or separation from source, or separation from true knowledge. So energy, life energy that has been misdirected or misunderstood. And so, one really perfect example of this is the proliferation of single male shooters, especially in America. So it's like this wounded individual, mostly white, like 99% were white, heterosexual young men who were in so much pain that they took that pain instead of processing it, right? Because they're just modeling what society's shown them. So really is they're showing a murderous model of masculinity, and then it's been acted out. Because if you do not have the groundedness of emotion, if you are not grounded in your own emotion and in your own container of the truth of who you are, when you start processing all this unconscious material, you can get caught up in it and act it out if you think it's real. And it's not that it's not real. I think it was Jung who said, if you're unable to face, the energy, he didn't say it quite like this, I can't remember the exact quote, the energies and the forces within, you'll face them on the outside and call it fate. And so these young men did not have the tools, the resources, or the ability in this society to process and to clear their own emotion. And this isn't new, it's just like at this time in our society has come to a head because it's so dysfunctional, and it's so many people are suffering, and you see it out in the world. A lot of people turn that pain, they don't turn it out in the world, they turn it in to themselves through abuse, drug abuse, alcoholism, and you even prior, I did this podcast called The Health Care Crisis Before the Healthcare Crisis, which unfolded in and around March when this global pandemic broke out. But to tell you the truth, we had the whole opioid crisis going on way before then, where people were just offing themselves because they couldn't be, or they didn't know how to process their own emotions, and nobody taught them. And for the most part, nobody even knows that they weren't taught. And this is the injustice. This is the tragedy that is occurring, is a lot of people would just blame themselves, and off themselves. But the truth is it's a product of our whole society, a whole product of consumerism. And it is just shoved under consciousness. And it's just well, if you have this car and this house, then you're good. And clearly that's not the truth. And if you can't have that car and that house, then you're really not good. Because not only are you emotionally in pain, but you're also, on the outward landscape, defined as, not keeping up with appearances. And so this isn't a matter of appearances. This is a matter of the inherent essence of who we are as human beings. And the self is being transformed, or being asked to be transformed if we choose to. A lot of people will continue, placing their hands over their ears and saying, no, 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 I can't hear you. Because they don't even know how to begin to dip their toe into that internal world, because they have stacked the pain for many years. No fault of their own. They were just reproducing the most popular model of ego construction and protection. And I might add that I'm here today to not only share with you what I just shared with you, but to also give you a glimmer and a glimmer of hope for the work that is not only being done by many people to provide the tools and the consciousness in order to start clearing this material out in a safe, productive, wholesome way. But it is the path to our human evolution, because our old model of ego, of the psyche of egotistical relating that we've been sold is dying. It's death. It doesn't have any more. Not that it ever did. It's just gotten to the point where, it's unsustainable on so many levels. But for many of us, we just didn't even know there was another option. So we just like, okay, I'll do it. Everyone else is doing it. But it's just, it's not, it's come to the point where it has run its course, let's say. And so I wanted to come on today and share with you all of this information and let you know that this is the kind of work that I'm helping people with. To give them a lay of the land, tools and practices that they can take with them to do this work, because it's important work. And our health, our mental health, our physical health, the health of our families, the health of our communities, and our entire planet depends on this. And so once you start clearing this all out, then you can, start stepping into the truth of who you are, of who you really are, and what you came here to really do. Right? As I say, you didn't come here to pay the bills and, work 10-hour, 12-hour days. You came here to fully experience joy and happiness and connection, and to receive and to give love, and to fully embody your potential for your own experience of it, and then the joy of sharing it with others. And so I just wanted to remind you of all that, and let you know that if you're doing this work, keep going. You're doing a good job. And if you're not doing this work, but you've been thinking about doing this work, then I encourage you to do so. If you would like help or guidance or support, please reach out to me. You can go to my webpage, www.mindheart-space.com, and there's a little box you can click to schedule a free discovery chat with me, so we can see, and you can see, how I might be able to serve you in accelerating your evolution at this time on the planet. All right. I think that's all for now. I want to thank you for stopping by and listening to me. And I hope you got something of value for yourself that you can take with you out in the world today. Something that inspires you and uplifts you, and maybe helps you breathe a little easier. All right, until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are, and I will be doing my best to be showing up more on my videos on the site. I just needed a little time out. All right, take care. Bye.